Hello, and welcome for another episode of Devo's Straight Dope. So, today I'm going to talk about doctors showing respect, or rather, doctors need to show respect for their patients as well as their social workers. As you may have guessed it, I am a social worker. And part of my job is to take people to doctor's appointments, basically to help them to advocate for themselves, answering questions, asking questions, providing information, etc., etc. So, I've gone to hundreds of doctor's appointments with my clients, and there are some things that have occurred at these appointments too frequently. And, sorry, my cat, she wants attention, but yes. So basically, I've noticed a lot of issues with these doctors. Now, before I go any further, I want to say that I've had clients who have really good doctors, really respectful doctors. So, I'm not saying anything bad about all doctors, because there are some who have been really helpful, they're really good at what they do. But then you have those who feel that because most of my clients only have Medicare and or Medicaid, they're not worthy of respect, or since, and because of that, well, we're going to get into all of them, but basically, sorry, the one thing, when it comes to my clients, I've noticed that the top two problems that I've noticed with some of their doctors is they have difficulty with being on time and with making themselves available to their patients. So we're going to go over all of these. First of all, timeliness. And I get it. Sometimes things get really busy. Sometimes one's car won't start. Sometimes there's an emergency meeting. You have doctors who have their own families. I get it. Things happen. But there have been times when a doctor is always late, and not just 5-10 minutes, but sometimes 30 minutes to an hour, and we're not even apologetic about it. And with situations like that, not only are they harming their patients, but they're making it difficult for people like me to do my job. And it's like they have this assumption that since they have their issues, I'm not going to specify. Obviously, they aren't working, they aren't doing certain things, so they have all the time in the world. Well, for many of my clients, that is not true. And for social workers, it's definitely not true. In fact, too many times I would have a full schedule, and because one doctor decided to show up maybe 30 or even an hour and a half late for an appointment, I have to push all of my other appointments back. I have to try to rearrange my schedule with everyone else on staff. I have to cancel certain things, and that's unfair to my other clients. So I'm going to go over the top reasons why I've noticed doctors are late and my responses to them. first of all, overbooking. And because of that, basically, in my experience with overbooking, you would have a doctor who'll say, oh, you have a 2 o'clock appointment. And then, when you bring your client to their 2 o'clock appointment, well, guess what? They have 5 other people also there for 2 o'clock appointments, because they have all of these patients for the same slot. Yep, the same appointment slot, whether it's for 30 minutes or an hour or whatever. And sometimes they do this because there are people that have serious issues and need to get seen right away. But it seems to happen too often in certain doctors' offices. And because of that, there have been times when you would have doctors where you come at 1:30 for your 2 o'clock appointment, and you're one of the first people to arrive, but guess what? There are people in the waiting room who had 12:30 appointments. So that just shows what overbooking does. The simple fact is, a doctor has to be honest with him or herself. What time slot, what's the average time slot for an appointment? And then schedule that way. Because when you're overbooking, then you're going to have more patients than you know what to do with. And then you're going to have people who thought they came early for their appointments, and yet that person who had a 2 o'clock appointment, they don't get seen until 3:45. Not fair. And it's that chunk of time that makes it so that social workers struggle to be able to accommodate this appointment at the expense of other appointments. And then you have doctors who also have days when they're at a local hospital. So they'll have clinic times in the morning or in the afternoon, and then for the rest of the time, they will be in the hospital. And, hey, I understand. Especially if you are an emergency room doctor, a doctor in intensive care, telemetry, whatever. I understand. But still, if you're going to have clinic hours, you've got to have staff, and you've got to make sure that the scheduling is done accurately. I have this one doctor where every morning he would spend time in the local hospital. We were in the outpatient part. So he's in this hospital and meeting clients there, patients there, determining who's ready to go home, who needs to stay, etc., etc. And because of that, there have been times when I had a client who had a 1 o'clock appointment. We would show up at maybe 12:30, because I always tell my clients who don't like leaving too early that the earlier we get there, the more likely we're going to be seen on time. That's just a fact. So there was a time when my client had a 1 o'clock appointment. We got there at 12:30, and then at 1 o'clock, the time for his appointment, he didn't even show up. And he has a waiting room full of patients waiting for him, some who are waiting since 12 o'clock, for a 12 o'clock appointment. So the simple fact is, don't make appointments you can't keep. I understand things happen, but keep your eye on your watch. If you have to set a timer, set a timer. Do what you need to do. But if you've got patients at 12 o'clock, you need to bring your butt to your clinic before 1 o'clock. It's simple human decency. So, yes, and basically, there have been times where that patient would have a 1 o'clock appointment and he wouldn't get seen until maybe 2:30, and so it's just ridiculous. And then you have doctors who see patients with special issues. This is what I get a lot, where you have this doctor, she has a 2 o'clock appointment, 2:30 appointment, 3 o'clock appointment, 3:30 appointment, and so you have the 2:30 appointment, but at 3:45 you're still waiting. Why? Because she has a 2 o'clock, she's still meeting with that 2 o'clock person. And when you ask why it's taking so long, they'll say, well, that person has special needs. Okay, I get it. Maybe they do have special needs. But what's to say that my client doesn't have special needs either? I have clients who get very anxious at long waits. And even if their life depended on them keeping this appointment, they would rather leave than stay too long waiting. Because it can be torture. And what makes it, all this waiting around, even worse is when the doctors don't have the brain to tell their staff to let their people know that they're running behind, or if they come in late, not calling the day to say, just to let you know before you come down here, you have we are overbooked today, so you might be waiting a while, and give you the option of either keeping the appointment or rescheduling it. But doctors, too many doctors don't do that. Instead, they get annoyed when you have to keep coming to ask them, when's the doctor going to see me? When's the doctor going to see my client? And they're annoyed, the staff persons are annoyed because they don't know, because the doctors don't tell them jack. So it's very disrespectful. Doctors, I don't know what's going on with those patients with special needs, but again, my client might have special needs too. The simple fact is, if you're going to be late, at least let us know you're going to be late. Show that you actually care. Move. Sorry. Show that you actually care. I guess you want to be on television. And at least give us an idea as to how long we're going to wait. And another thing, for doctors who keep having these patients with special needs, the simple fact is, people make appointments for a reason. We make appointments so that we don't have to go to some urgent care place and wait half the day. We make appointments so that we can follow up on our care. So we make appointments for a reason. If this person has special needs that are going to take up all the appointment time, then the simple fact is, clinics are not emergency rooms, they are not triage centers. if you're going to require so much time that you're going to be extremely late with your other clients, just send them to the emergency room. I mean, I know you want to help, I know you care and everything, but it is ridiculous where you did everything you're supposed to do, getting there to your appointments early, filling out the paperwork when you're just going to look at the paperwork and basically ask them to repeat everything they've written down, even though you're able to read what they wrote. Send them to the emergency room. Again, it's a clinic, not a it's a clinic, not an emergency room. You are not a triage doctor. You are family practice. You are an internist, a specialist, whatever. This is not emergency care. So, and basically, why make all of your other clients suffer? Why make all of your other clients suffer? Because you choose to, because you want to play the triage part. No. You are affiliated to a hospital. Even if you're not, it's a clinic. Send them to the emergency room. Definitely. But the bottom line is, when it comes to appointments, if you can't, don't make appointments if you're not going to keep them. Just make everything walk-in basis. Because a lot of social workers, they may not be as blunt as me, but I have a big mouth. A lot of social workers and most vulnerable patients are getting fed up with the idea that they have to make an appointment to come in unless it's an emergency or whatever. And when they come in, they have to spend half their day there. And many times, these doctors, when they come in, they don't even apologize. They may be poor. They may have conditions where they can't work. And they may have only Medicaid. But they deserve respect. They deserve to be treated like you really care about them, and not that you're doing them some kind of a favor. Because even in Illinois, you may be waiting, but you will get paid. So you're not doing charity work. This is not a free clinic. If we were talking about free clinics here, I would keep my mouth shut. But they have insurance. It may not be the best kind, but it's insurance. And you are going to get paid. So either be more respectful of their time and hours, or why don't you just move your clinic to a rich area so that you'll be around the patients that you really want to be around. That is, unless you've lost your passion for helping those in need. So, but yes, I'm sorry if I'm stepping on toes, but I'm really getting sick and tired of these doctors and clinics who have no respect for our time, yet they expect us to respect their time. I can't tell you how many times they keep telling us we have a no-show policy, or we have a late policy, where basically if you show up, like they say that you have a grace period of 15 minutes, and then after that you probably can't be seen. And then, so even if there's a blizzard outside, even if there's horrible traffic, because the president came into town, and so because of all the security he'll need, they have a lot of the streets blocked off. It doesn't matter. If you show up 16 minutes after your appointment time, then that doctor has the right to not see you. So, if that's going to be the case, and many of them will reserve that right, they will enforce that right. So the question is, if the doctor is that late all the time with us, with my clients especially, shouldn't we get a late policy? Shouldn't they get something, some kind of concession for showing up early, doing the paperwork and everything, having insurance, and yet we're still waiting forever? Huh? So, that's the main thing. I mean, you don't have to have a career where you make six figures, or darn well close to 6 figures, to know that time is precious, time is valuable, and it is rude to make people wait too long, especially without any notice. So doctors, keep that in mind. So I talked about being on time. Now I'm going to talk about making time, making a doctor available for their clients. And I'm going to get right to my number one pet peeve when it comes to trying to reach a doctor or trying to meet with a doctor, at least with a client. And that would happen to be doctors not returning phone calls. I mean, there have been times when a client's health is in jeopardy, where they could die if they don't get the help that they need, and yet we have to call several times, basically stalk them, before they will return a phone call. And where every time we try to call, it goes directly to voicemail, if we're lucky. And then there have been times when, for some weird reason, the phone keeps going directly to the busy tone. If we call you, we're not calling just to say, hi, let's do lunch. We are calling you because our clients need you. And basically, when it comes to a lot of these illnesses, what one of us might wave off, our clients are sometimes panicking about. And the more they have to wait for you to return a phone call, the more they panic, until they panic themselves into the psych ward. And I guess maybe you now know the type of social work I do. All of this could have been avoided if someone in your office knew how to pick up a phone, dial a number, and say, hi, we're returning your call. What's going on? Seriously. Are you a doctor or a celebrity? Celebrities, they like to show up fashionably late. They like to call when they feel like calling. And people think that it's cool. It's not cool when a doctor does it. It is demeaning. So again, if we call you, leave a message. And now, when we call you, return our phone calls. immediately, as soon as you can. That leads me to another thing, and that has to do with these answering services. It seems like most doctors' offices have these now. They don't have voicemail, they don't have answering machines, they have answering services. And in my experience, that's when they're basically paying someone to say, oh, I'm sorry, he's not in the office, and I can't take messages. If you're going, I mean, what are you paying them to do besides maybe page you in emergencies? It's an answering service, and they don't take messages. Are you kidding me? I know that there was a time in the past when basically we would have these, you give limited space on voicemail. I get it. But still, if you're hiring someone to just pick up the phone and say, oh, they're not open. I don't get it. If you're going to have an answering service because you can't rely on voicemail, make sure they will write down a message and make sure that the office gets it. Because many of us don't have the time to keep trying to call back and forth to hope that you'll answer or that you'll be open. No, we have other things to do and other clients who need our help. So if you have the answering service, make sure that they will take and leave messages, please. Please. So, that leaves me to one more thing with making themselves available. I've known doctors, and not just Medicaid doctors, that are only available 1 or 2 times a year. Now, one of those doctors, she's only available twice a year. I'm sorry, 1 or 2 times a week. Now, one of those doctors, I can understand that because she's 84 years old. It's admirable that she's still working. But then you have these other doctors where they only make themselves available for their patients 1 or 2 times a week because and it's not that they're also working at another location. No. It's because they're also professors. And the other 4 days in the week, they're teaching. So I guess the question is, if you're only available 1 day a week because you're teaching, why are you even there for 1 day a week? Teaching is obviously your passion, and then it's just going to make things hard for your patients where they want you as their doctor, and yet, except for that 1 day out of the week, the only time they can get some help, because the only time they can get some help is with one of your other partners, because you have you're too busy with your students to call back or to provide support over the phone. So you've got to make up your mind. Do you want to be a doctor or do you want to be a professor? If you're going to be, do one or the other, and don't screw around with it. Because it is wrong to expect that your patients will be able to hold all important questions and report all immediate concerns to you on that 1 day of a week only. I mean, we're not robots. We're human beings. So make a decision. Do you want to be a doctor or do you want to be a professor? If you want to be a doctor, make sure you're in the office at least 3 full-hour days a week. At least. Preferably Saturdays for those who work themselves. And preferably evenings if possible. But if you can only afford that one day out of the week to come into a clinic and see patients, then forget about it. Save that day for, save that day with either, save that day for your students, or just make it a day to go have lunch with your high society friends. But don't waste our time. So feel free to leave any comments on all of this, even angry comments. But the simple fact is, your patients, no matter what insurance they have, they deserve more. And you're the one who took the Hippocratic Oath. You're the one who said you want to be a doctor or nurse practitioner. So, with all of this in mind, to not take any effort to give your patients the care that they deserve and need, how are you not doing them harm? And how are you not making a mockery of your profession? Show your patients that you care. Respect their time and make yourself available. I'm out.